Hey YouTube! Straturday. I totally stole that idea, and there's not going to be very many of them because I don't have that many strats. So here is a Squier Strat Affinity series, and it's called Midnight Blue, but I still think it's purple. I've had this argument with my pal Peg, who bought a Telecaster, a Mexican Telecaster, about probably coming up for 20 years ago. His purple Strat, his purple telly, and he always said it was blue, and I always argued it was purple, and it's actually found out after like 10 years later that actually the technical name is Midnight Blue, but it's still a very purpley blue, so I'm still maintaining, even though there's proof against it, that it's still purple, sort of. Yeah, anyway, so HSS layout. This I did a video a couple of weeks ago where I was really kind of blown away actually by an Epiphone SG that was bought in that my pal bought, and there's something not right with it, and it was just it not been set up. It was awful. You know, there was high frets. It was really an unplayable guitar. It wasn't a cheap one either. That's been going on for quite a long time. I wasn't really aware of that because I generally buy second-hand guitars, and because they're, you know, well, most of the ones I've got are from the 80s, so it's like you can't, you know, if it's survived 30 years without being set up, and it's like, and occasionally do have high frets and stuff like that, which you get you sometimes get in really cheap guitars. And my worry about buying something like that Epiphone was some poor kid's going to get that for Christmas and are not going to be aware that the guitar's not working properly, and they're just going to think, oh, I'm rubbish at guitar, you know, whatever I do seems to buzz, and you know, it's like I can't hold the chords down right and all these things. That's what happened with this one. So this one's a 2008, so serial number's IC08, that's Indonesian Court, I think. And the guy said it'd been in below his bed for 10 years. And I got the impression, I don't think he'd either never learned to play the guitar or he'd just bought another one. So, you know, 2 years sort of hanging on the wall or sitting in the corner, and then 10 years under a bed is what generally happens to these things. He said he bought it in a beginner pack. I never actually asked about the amp and stuff. But so I got it back. So it's been very, very rarely played, and it had high frets, and it buzzed, and it was like that from new. So that's somebody who didn't learn to play the guitar because they didn't buy a good one, or they didn't get a good one by random chance. So now it's all set up and playing amazing, but it's just one of those things that it really annoys me. The fact that somebody, you know, who would maybe, you know, 10 years later might be in bands and having a great time playing the guitar, but because they got one, you know, it's not like it was a cheap one. This is it's a Squier, it's a Fender. So that was what was wrong with it. I've also changed the bridge pickup because the one that was in it was a bit, I'm just going to say cheap sounding. I think it was slightly overpowered, might have been the problem. It kind of didn't work with the other pickups. It was a huge difference in sound between having the humbucker on and having the single coils on, so it was like kind of like you couldn't really switch between them during the same song, otherwise you'd be, you know. I think there is an element of that with cheap pickups. A single coil is quite easy to make. You don't generally get in modern days, and I'm saying, you know, I'm classing anything in the last 20 years as modern days, you don't really get really crap single coils. Humbuckers are a wee bit different. You sometimes do get really bad humbuckers. I think there's also a slight element of guitar in your Squiers and Epiphones, maybe not so much now, but back 20 years ago, where they would intentionally put quite crap pickups in it so that you would buy, oh, it's like, here's this one for, you know, 150 or whatever it was. But if you try this one at 300, you know, it sounds better. So that's why you buy the £300 one. If they made this one sound the same as the £300 one, no one's going to buy the £300 one, they're going to buy the one at half the price. So I think that's what's happened here. I did a wee bit of fancy wiring in it. So I'll play some sounds of of what it comes with as standard. So just playing through my wee Laney VC15. I am playing through that 3x12 cabinet, no pedals on. Neck pickup. Trying to tone down. Just in 4, these two, Mark Knopfler. No copyright infringement there. middle pickup. Position 2, which is the humbucker, and the middle pickup. And then bridge, humbucker. Which is a wee bit louder than the other ones, but it's a much closer to the volume of the singles than the pickup I replaced it with. Wee bit of distortion on the bucker will really make it work properly. Maybe a wee bit of the rat pedal on, make it a bit more distorted. That was a Washburn stack in a box, so I'll go for a bit more distortion, which kind of, the whole idea with having a humbucker in is, I suppose, kind of Iron Maiden and Van Halen and stuff like that, where you would get like a more rock sound out of a Stratocaster guitar. Yeah, so that's kind of the stock sounds, what you would get on it if you bought one of these guitars, I suppose, and then replaced the pickup with a more suitable one and got it set up. Maybe, depending on which shop it is you buy it from, you're going to get, I mean, I think they still make it. There still is a Squier Affinity series. I don't know if it's available in this colour. I mean, the colour is a total winner for me. See, to be totally honest, if this had a maple neck on it, I much prefer a maple neck if I've got the choice. If this had a maple neck on it, I would possibly be keeping it. I'm going to sell it on. But it'll be an amazing guitar for someone. I kind of want this to go to someone who will, treasure it, because it's slightly unusual, but it's not mad unusual like the way my guitars are normally mad unusual. So it's like just not being black or red, or like the Sunburst one. It's got something because it's a totally cool colour, and who doesn't like? See, it's still purple. I mean, it doesn't look it in the photos that I took, and it doesn't really look it on the camera, but in person, purple. It's purple, deep purple. Yeah, so I've been at it with my mods. So as I was saying there, my new favourite thing is putting high pass filters in. So this has, instead of this, normally on a Strat, the two tone controls are for the neck pickup and the middle pickup. In this case, we've got a master tone control, which just does the lot, and a master high pass filter, which is like a tone control, but instead of taking away the treble, it takes away the bass. So you roll that down. This is me in the neck pickup. I just figured it's a much more useful thing than having the two tone controls up. So the normal tone control does that. And then if you suck away the bass, you end up with nothing. Because you're just taking away the two frequencies. They're passive, so you can't boost anything without having a battery. So all you can do is take something away. So if you want to boost things, you turn the amp up a little bit, and then you can just reduce the treble or reduce the bass. It gives you more options, basically. The other, as you notice, there's a switch here as well, and I've just realised that I think I might have had that switch in. Right, so if in the first bit I might have been playing this is the humbucker now, as opposed to the middle single coil. Yeah. So what this is a coil choice switch, which I may have invented. I've not seen it before anywhere else. Not a particularly complicated thing. So just now we're listening to both coils of the bridge pickup in humbucker mode. So if you click it this way, you get this coil, which is the one closest to the bridge, so it's much thinner. And if you push it to the other way, it's a three-way switch, you get this coil. So when you're on this pickup, if you go into position 2, which gives you these two, you get the proper position 2 you would normally expect a Strat, rather than the humbucker in the single coil. You get the two singles, which is more snappy and more stratty than it is in humbucker mode. And because you're listening to this coil and this coil, they are opposite winds, so you're getting hum cancelling in that position, which is nice. So, whereas, right? So the coil split does something else as well. It's like a multi-function switch, which I'm pretty definitely sure that is me alone. So when you're on this pickup, right? So no, let's say normal pickups are positive wind. This is going into a bit technical detail. Try not to get your eyes to glaze over. Right, so the bridge pickup is positive, and the middle pickup is negative. They're opposite winds, so that when you've got the two of them on together and when you're in position 4, it's hum cancelling, right? Which basically just means that the interference that both pickups are picking up is cancelled out between them, so there's less interference, so it's less noisy. Not so much a thing these days, but back in the 60s and stuff, when you had bad or fluorescent lighting or something like that, sometimes a guitar could be fine in the house and you go and take it out into the studio or something like that, and if they've got dodgy lightings or a dimmer switch, it'll just pick up radio interference and just buzz and crackle and horrible. So being hum cancelling is a good thing. So positive, negative. So when I'm splitting the humbucker into the north coil, the neckmost one, this is still negative, this is positive, so you're hum cancelling in that position, right? So that means that when you've got this one on, that means that this coil is positive and this one's negative, right? This is sounded confusing, it's not, honestly. What this also does, so this is the opposite from this one. So if you could get these two pickups on together, you would have the outside two like what a Telecaster does, but they're in hum cancelling mode. So what this switch does as well, when you're in the position choosing this switch here, it hardwires the output of this pickup to the outside of the switch like a reverse Gilmour switch. So if you select the neck pickup and then you put it to this coil and the coil split switch, it turns it on, so you get outside two coils. That's not really that confusing, but here's the neck pickup. Classic sound. And here is the neck coil and the bridges, one of the coils from the bridge pickup. So you get a new sound. So neck, tele modes, both outer coils. So I'll have a wee jam with that. I'm going to do I've been doing videos of any guitar. I've got unusual switches, so I've got like a reference, like wee 3-minute ones where I'll have them all, so you don't have to try and find this video again. So we're now 50 minutes in, I've not even started jamming. You have heard the guitar, so let's just try and do something. I'll just turn on some. What do I start off with is my rhythm track. outside coils. So position 4 in normal modes. I'm going to turn the loop down a little bit. I was messing around with an acoustic the other day. So because the switch is adding in the bridge, so even though I'm position 4, which is these two on, if I add in this switch as well, I'm now getting these two and single, so it's all three coils on. A little bit muddy, so I can take away some of the bass. So that's the bridgemost coil, the thinnest sound the guitar can do, unless you roll off the bass, so it'll be super thin and a little bit quiet maybe. Be good for it. Yeah, okay. The other coil, the normal one, the nicer sounding one. Humbucker. A bit of distortion. More distortion. My joyous dream now. Humbucker on the bridge. going to go into the fuzz pedal now and think about using the very thin sound, which it's not, the sound I'm using just now is not that good, but on a fuzz pedal it probably worked really well. Take away the bass. So the thinnest sound this guitar does, with the bass rolled all off, and on this coil here, through a fuzz pedal, that's going to be amazing if you're doing it in a mix. If you're in like a Leonard Skinner type band or something like that, where you've got a few guitarists kicking about, you're not stepping on anyone's feet because it's so damn trebly. You probably want to up the volume a little bit for. Time because there's a dodgy input on that pedal. Bring the bass back in. Humbucker. Nice screech. Yeah, so that was the Squier Purple, or perhaps I've not really worked out. I've not spent enough time with that Behringer fuzz pedal really to get that working. So kind of through that I was using for the light distortion, my Washburn stack in a box. When I said fuzz first time, it was the twin note fuzz pedal, which I kind of know how to use. It kind of doesn't really do very much, it's kind of just got on. It does have knobs, but the sound it's got is the sound it's got. And the Behringer one I was using at the end there, which has got lots of variations, which I've not really delved into properly yet. Should. Yeah, so this guitar, I mean, good quality, all the parts, it's got a decent type of tuners on it. First thing I was looking at, actually I got a guitar in the other day, and it's got this type of tuner. You can normally take, as opposed to this type, in general, you'd much rather have this type. I had a Yamaha guitar, it was an SE150 that had this type of tuner, but good quality this type of tuner. These tuners are absolutely awful, whatever the guitar that these came off. It's pretty rarely that I just have to, it's like, I've always said that's not really, you never really get bad tuners, you get ones that feel a bit worse. These are just absolute shite. The guitar was pretty much new as well, just they've tried to save 10 pence by making them out of really thin metal or something like that, and they're just, it's kind of like, it's one of those things, like, I'm thinking of putting them on the Facebook buy and sell page for a couple of quid. It's just not worth it, because then somebody's going to be stuck with tuners that are just not anything. So I'm just going to put them straight in the bin. I took the wee screws out because they're going to be useful, but really awful. That's kind of by the by. So this decent tuners, a pretty good solid guitar. The neck feels really good. I think it used to be a sort of satin, but see, because it's quite old, it's kind of aged a little bit. It feels much nicer than a new one does. I think they still make this guitar, but specs change. Just because it's the same model and it's, it says the same, it looks the same, doesn't mean it was even made in the same factory, or maybe it does, but I mean they change specs all the time, so it could have different pickups, different tuners, different woods, blah blah blah, from year to year. So a 2008 one is a nice guitar, but kind of try it first, because you might end up with one like this one when I got it, and it really just didn't play. The action had to be really high. Well, the action was really high, but even then it still buzzed because it's, frets that were just not finished at the factory. It just wasn't. These things don't happen over time. It's like the frets don't. pop out and get, well, in Arizona and stuff, apparently that does happen because you get huge temperature differences between, like if you're in Canada or something like that, and then you drive to, or you get a plane to Arizona, you're going from crazy low temperature to crazy high temperature, no humidity to maximum humidity. In where I'm in Scotland, or in a sort of temperate middle type zone, it doesn't really change that much, so these things don't happen. So this has been basically, when it was bought, it was a bad guitar, but now it's all set up and lovely. So yes, it's rocking. So I'm going to put this up for sale. As I said, what I've done to it is I sorted out the high frets, polished the frets, adjusted the truss rod, set the intonation, changed this pickup for one that I think sounds a bit better. I was talking about this the other day. I had a guitar, an Ibanez Blazer, that had coil taps on it, so you get your sort of vintage low output pickup and then your hot high output pickup on a switch. It's quite hard to do. You need a special pickup for it. And it's kind of like the low output ones are, although everyone thinks, oh, hot's got to be better, hotter the better. Yeah, it's like that doesn't really apply. It's really the best sounding pickups and the most distorted and the most heavy sounding pickups for me, for the sort of sounds that I'm using. They are running a tube amp with a couple of drive pedals, are better, being lower output. They've got much more high end and they just seem much clearer to start with. And then obviously in this one especially, you've got the bass and treble controls basically to mess about with them, so that was an addition as well. And then obviously my super switch, which if anyone has got a good name for it, coil choice, because it is a coil choice, but it's also does that other thing. So yeah, so basically you can choose either one of these coils, and when you're choosing this coil, it also hardwired this, so it makes this permanently on. So whatever you've got set on the 5-way lever, it gives you whatever the 5-way lever's set to, and this coil, so you get an extra. Let's calculate it out before I give up. So, sound wise, start with 5, right? Standard. Then you've got, if you go into the position, you've got 6 and 7, because you get this pickup and this coil. And then if you go into position 4, again 6 and 7. Nope, 7, 8 and 9. So you're at 9 sounds. And then if you're in the middle position, that's the same, blah, blah, blah. If you're in position 4 on this, with this one down, another one 10, and if you go into the neck, so in position 4 there, you've got this coil, and this coil on, and if you go into the neck position, you get this coil and this coil, so that's 11 sounds. 11 sounds with one 3-way switch, and the best thing about it is, and that's not including the extra high pass filter, if you just ignore that. Best thing is, when this switch is in the middle, it's just exactly what you'd expect. Yeah, so it's just like an extra bit. And then if you put it down, you've got if you put it in the middle, you've got exactly what you expect as an HSS strat. If you push this down, you've got like a standard strat, and then the fancy one is if you pull it up, you get the extra 2 sounds that aren't available normally. I hope that wasn't that confusing. Anyway, rock on. I'm going to do a video tomorrow for just a talking one, just messing about. I know I do talk quite a lot anyway, and I've managed to talk half an hour on this guitar. I should probably do a 5-minute version of this video. So if there's any guitars I've got that you want to see a bit more of, or anything like that, give me a shout and I'll read your name out on. You can be famous like me. Rock on. Catch you later.